The Medal of Honor, the dimly lit bar, smelled of stale beer and burnt cigarettes. The kind of place where time seemed to slow down, and people's bitterness lingered in the air. It was a Tuesday evening in a small town, tucked somewhere in the deep South. The locals gathered at the bar, grumbling about their day-to-day struggles, throwing back drinks as if their lives depended on it then. The door swung open, and a figure stepped in, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. The man was tall, with broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of years spent under the sun and the stars. His military jacket, slightly worn but immaculately pressed, bore a shining medal that caught the dim light of the room. The Medal of Honor, the bar, fell silent. It wasn't just the sight of the medal that stunned everyone, but the man himself, a black man, walking into a bar known for its history of racial animosity. For a moment, no one spoke. The jukebox continued to hum a blues tune in the background, but the conversations had stopped dead. All eyes were on him, the bartender, a gruff man with a beard that seemed to have lived through decades of tension, cleared his throat. "Can I help you, sir?" His voice was shaky, trying to sound casual, but everyone could tell it was anything but. The veteran's eyes scanned the room, meeting the gaze of every person who had been watching him. He wasn't tense or angry. Instead, there was a calmness, as if the world outside this bar was the farthest thing from his mind. He walked slowly, deliberately, toward the bar, each step echoing like a drumbeat in the silence. "I'll have a whiskey," he said quietly. But his voice carried with it a weight that demanded attention. The bartender nodded and turned to prepare the drink. The patrons whispered amongst themselves, eyes flicking to the medal, to the man, then back to the medal. It was the kind of medal that no one could ignore. It had been earned on the battlefield, in the heat of war, where lives were on the line, where humanity was tested. The veteran sat at the bar, resting his hand on the counter, and for a brief moment, it seemed like everything had returned to normal. But then, one of the regulars, a burly man with a thick accent, stood up. His face was pale, his eyes wide. He stepped towards the veteran, his hand trembling slightly. "Hey, you earned that." "In the war?" the man stuttered, his voice dripping with disbelief. The veteran nodded, his gaze never wavering. "Yes, I did." The man's face shifted from confusion to something akin to fear. The room seemed to contract, the air thickening. He stumbled back, knocking over his chair in the process. The rest of the bar patrons exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to react. They had heard the stories of black soldiers returning home from wars, only to be treated with disdain and hostility. But this was different. One by one, the regulars started to stand, inching closer to the door, their bodies tense, ready to bolt. The veteran, sensing their fear, stood up as well, his movements calm and purposeful. "I don't want trouble," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm just here for a drink. But if any of you have a problem with me being here, then it's your problem, not mine." The words hung in the air like a challenge. A silence fell over the room once more. Then, one by one, the patrons began to sit back down, slowly, like they were testing the waters. The bartender placed the whiskey in front of the veteran, and for the first time that night, he seemed to relax. His grip on the glass steady. The veteran took a sip, savoring the warmth as it spread through him. "The medal?" he said after a moment, looking around the room. "It doesn't mean I'm better than you. It means I survived when a lot of others didn't. I fought for everyone, regardless of color, regardless of who you are. I did what I had to do." The room was still tense, but there was a shift. Some of the men, older ones with weathered faces, looked away, ashamed. Others remained silent, but there was a respect in their eyes now, a recognition that they couldn't deny. The man had earned his place in history, in the world, and in this bar. The veteran finished his drink, placed the glass back on the counter, and stood up to leave. As he did, the bartender, who had been watching silently, spoke up. "Thank you for your service," he said, his voice low but sincere. The veteran nodded, offering a small, knowing smile. "Take care of yourselves." He turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind him. For a moment, the silence hung in the air, but then, as if a heavy weight had been lifted, the conversations began again. Quieter now, more thoughtful. In the days that followed, the story of the black veteran with the Medal of Honor spread through the town. It became a symbol, a reminder that courage and honor weren't defined by the color of someone's skin, but by the strength of their character. And though the town would always carry its scars that night, something had shifted. Something had begun to heal.